Hey everyone, this is Joyce with Overthinker, the podcast. In this episode, I continue talking to Angelica from the last episode. In this one, we talk about how to create the list that's going to define who you look for in a future partner. Now, this is super important, and it's been super important in my journey as well, because as we talk about in the episode, sometimes we are programmed with certain beliefs, certain perspectives that when we're growing up, we assume that certain behaviors are healthy because that's what we saw our parents do. As I've noticed for myself is that I got stuck in unhealthy patterns. And if you're in those shoes right now, if you find that your relationships are never working out for some reason and you don't know why, you always have conflict with your partner, it's not supposed to be like that. There's supposed to be conflict, but it's supposed to be healthy, productive conflict. If you're getting stuck in these power struggles or just finding that it's this constant, intense high and low, relationships shouldn't be like that. So if you are in those shoes, it's really important to come up with a list of things that are separate from whoever you're dating, separate from how you saw your parents engage with each other, but really trying to figure out what are the things that you really want in a partner. What do you feel like would contribute to a healthy relationship in the future? Don't focus on what feels right to you, but focus more on what is good for you, because sometimes what feels right is not good for you. We expand a lot more on that in the episode itself. And at the end, I'll walk you through a few steps to get started on your own list. If you just want more resources, if you want to see the actual lists Angelica and I came up with, you can go over to my website so that you can take a look. I'll also have a worksheet available so that you can follow along. If you have never created a list like this before, I highly suggest that you do, because otherwise you're just hoping that you get lucky. Like, you're hoping that your instincts will point you in the right direction of the partner that you end up with in the future. Stay tuned to the rest of the episode. Again, this is Overthinker, and I will talk to you at the end with some practical tips to help you create your own list. Oh, and I totally forgot to tell you guys what my website is. It's joyceling.net. JoyceLing.net. So you can head over there, joyceling.net/podcast, in order to see all the show notes for all the episodes. So now we're going to the episode and go.
Like, something else I thought of too. So you're saying that you typically get triggered with your family.
Usually, yeah. Definitely family and like romantic relationships are very, very difficult.
Yeah. So yeah, I was going to ask about that piece, because for me, I'm the same. With friends, it's like, it's all good, like nothing ever seems to get super personal. Like, I might get irritated about something, but it's not like this super heavy, like, you hate me. And like, I don't know, I just don't usually go there with friends. Like, I don't have that insecurity. My therapist has kind of drawn that comparison or that connection too, because she's like, yeah, I mean, the reason family and your partner is kind of the same is because it's like a place you expect to feel safe. It's like that safe place that you go to. And so it brings up a lot of these childhood triggers and things. But yeah, like, I don't know what your experience has been with like romantic experiences, but like for me, it's been rough. Like, like my whole past year was about taking a break from dating, from sleeping around, like just taking a whole step back and forcing myself to take the space for myself and to learn what's going on. And in the space that I've created, that's where all of the growth happened, because I was just going from relationship to relationship, and it was kind of just this form of oblivion. Like, I wasn't really thinking about why I was where I was. It was just like this repetitive cycle of going, and not evaluating, wow, all these relationships are ending really badly. It must be them, you know?
You're like, they were all terrible.
Yeah, I'm just like, I just haven't met the right one yet, you know? And then realizing, oh, like, it might actually be me. And then realizing that all these things are connected, like the ways that I get triggered by my family is the way I get triggered by my partner. But that's not fair for me to take it out on my partner, or to have that righteous fury where it's like, well, I'm right, like, you should be on my side, or, you know? So I was going to ask, like, what your connection, I guess, between those things are. Like, do you have that?
I definitely have that awareness. Especially, so I've done a lot of work in the last year and a half, mostly on like what I need in a relationship, like the things that I need in a relationship. And I have like a list, like a legitimate list. And
that's so good.
I feel like to me, like the list isn't even things. Let me see if I can find it real quick. The list isn't even things that I feel like are hard. It's just like things that I think make up a good relationship. And I think this is something that like people should have a conversation about as they're like getting in relationships.
Yeah.
Because like if I want something in a relationship and the thing that I want isn't as important, like the things that I think are like majorly important aren't important to the person I'm going to get in a relationship with, there's going to be conflict all the time.
Yep.
Because, you know, unless you guys can come to the middle ground or you can come all the way over and they can come all the way over, there's no way that you're going to be able to make it if the things that you guys both think or see as most important are very, very different or opposite. A lot of times it's opposite. So I wrote down, these are very specific too. You're going to laugh.
But, okay. So for the context for the list though, is it things that you need from the other person? Or are these just like things you have to agree on or prioritize?
These are things that are important to me that I want in a relationship that I feel like would make me and the relationship work the best.
Okay, so just the relationship, not from the other person. Okay.
Oh, like, let me read the list and then I guess.
Okay, because I'm just saying, because I have a similar list, but it's like things that I want from the other person. So now I'm thinking like, maybe I shouldn't be focused on that. But anyways, continue.
This is interesting. Maybe we should do both. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wrote down a spiritual connection, love for God and prayer, amazing sex, comfortable, try new things, passionate, want each other, intellectual conversation, love, understanding, acceptance, compassion, getting to know about each other and how and why we act the way we do, then loving and being kind about it. Challenging, makes me think differently and not afraid to say when they don't agree and explain why. Partner in crime, have each other's back, do things just because the other person wants to. Intimacy, learning all the good things and the bad things about each other. Listening both sides, traveling, adventures, seeing the world together and trying new things. Laugh, fun, heart racing, physical touch, holding hands, rubbing each other's arms, face, and head. I told you some of these things are like super specific. Romance, sweet gestures, dating, going on weekly dates, building an empire, career-oriented, build a home and a family, creating our own home. Support, reassurance, loving and caring when down and upset, honesty and loyalty, truthful even when it hurts, always on each other's side even if wrong, communication and transparency, nonverbal and verbal, feelings, truths, vulnerable, fears, hard conversations, compromise, middle ground, best for both of us, respect in all aspects. So I think it's more along the lines of like, I want us both to bring these things to the table.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think that's a better way to frame it. Because when I wrote my list, I just thought about what I need in a partner in order to create the life that I want to have. Because I used to not really have like a direction where I was going. I was very like living a very chaotic life, just like dating whoever came along that I had feelings for and happened to have feelings for me. Like it was always this very like sexual type of energy. And then once I had sex, I was like attached, you know, like, and then I can't even see clearly like who this person is, you know? So it was for me to take a step back and be like, okay, what are the things that I need from somebody now that I have this future in mind? Because that was the first step, being able to realize that what I do now affects my future, which seems so simple. But when I was younger, I was like, didn't give a fuck about tomorrow. I was like partying all the time, doing all these drugs, like crazy stuff, you know. I always thought to myself, man, if anything happens, like I'll get through it. It's fine, you know. But it's kind of this sort of like thinking that's not attached to consequences. And so the way I lived was very present. It was always like, oh, well, I like this person, so I'm gonna like spend all my time with them because like love is the most important thing and this is my priority, you know? So I had like an unhealthy fixation, I think, with relationships. My list of things that I need based on where I see myself. So once I realized what I do now is attached to the future, now I can plan for that future. So, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I know I want kids. And so if I want kids, I need somebody with these qualities because you cannot raise kids with somebody who's unstable, right? Or somebody who's not like committed in certain aspects. I mean, you could, but that's not my standard of like raising kids. Like you're starting with a blank slate. That's so much responsibility. And of course, for somebody that doesn't want to pass on all of those negative things and like continue the cycle, I'm like, I need to have you who's going to partner with me in that. And so I actually have it in this book.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. I heard a lot of similar things, I would say. But it's so important because as somebody who kind of came from that chaotic world of just dating whoever and then wondering why they didn't like turn out well. It's because I didn't know who I was. And then it's like, if I don't know who I am, and then I was upset about things, but it was so confusing because I didn't know why I was upset or like really what I stood for.
Yeah.
So that's like a really tough place to be in. And now I'm able to recognize that some of these seem kind of how you felt about yours. Like, oh, this is kind of trite. Like, why would I care about this? It was like that internal voice judging me. I'm like, that's so superficial, Joyce. But also I'm like, could I picture a life with this person if they didn't have this? Mm-hmm. Probably not. Yeah. So it's just having to be honest with myself.
Absolutely.
Like, actually, I do need that because I would probably hate myself if I like married somebody.
I think that's so fair. And I think that I think as a society, we try to judge people based upon certain things, and like judging yourself for like wanting something in something else, I think is like normal, but also like we have the right to do that. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to be with everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
Like
that's true. I'm like, where does that judgment even come from? Oh, I think it probably has to do with the love is control thing, right? Mm. Because if love was freedom, then you can express yourself and it just be like, yo, that's cool. You know, like there's not this attachment to like an ideal self. Yeah. Like you should be this person. So I guess one of the ones that I was like, man, that's kind of like superficial was I wrote spice. And then in parentheses, I wrote sense of humor, spontaneity, and desire for variety. Because I was looking at my list and I was like, man, if they had everything else but spice, could I live with this person? Like they're just super loyal, super consistent, all the things. But like, we just didn't have that chemistry.
They sound boring.
I'm like, that's rough, you know? Going through this whole like non-dating journey and like defining what I want in a relationship, it's like, man, if you can find somebody who's everything else, that's like pretty good. I'm like, that's a pretty good partner. You're going to be happy. Your kids are going to be happy probably for the rest of their life. But I'm just like, man, like, I don't know if I could do it. But anyways, okay, so non-negotiables. I said stability, that's emotional and financial, which I'm kind of like, I don't know. The financial piece, because I'm like, you have to have money to raise kids. But, like, I don't like to be that person that's like, how much money do you make, you know? But anyways, more on that later. Critical thinker / problem solver, self-awareness, and not just like pretend self-awareness, like real self-awareness, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Work ethic, grounded, confident, versus insecure, egotistical, conceited, or narcissistic, confident and humble, honesty and openness, desire for constant evolution, active, like to go out and do things, openness to new experiences. They love people, meaning that they have like a positive view on people. They're not jaded. Healthy social life, because that's where I came from. I came from a very jaded place. That is not a good place to be. And if you're jaded, that means you need to figure some shit out. You know, like you're not ready to be in a relationship. Desire to serve and give, principled, consistent, reliable, responsible, desire to work on and constantly improve relationship, good communicator and willingness to communicate, practical, spice, social awareness, creativity, and a desire to create, disciplined with self-control, abundance-minded, not afraid to take risks, someone who sees me as an equal and treats me like one, supportive, physically present and emotionally present, because they can't just be supportive from afar. Like they've got to show up, you know, considerate of others, stand strong in their identity and path, follow through on their word, sense of purpose and belief in a meaningful existence, desire to protect, love for conversation, sexually attractive, openness and flexibility. They're boundaried and affectionate, persistent, fights for what they want and believe in. And then I have like nice to haves, but I feel like some of them might be non-negotiables. Like I wrote down has to love food. I'm just realizing.
I love it.
No, I'm realizing because like the way I was raised, food is equated to love. And so when I'm just with somebody who doesn't love food, it just like feels like something's missing, you know? I'm like, I just want to like eat with you and enjoy this. And they're kind of just like picky or like don't eat a lot of things. It hurts, you know? Or like if you cook something and they're like, I don't really like, I'm like, what? Like I take that personally and I know I do because like when I was a kid, my parents, they never said I love you, but instead they would say, have you eaten yet? Yeah. And so I really strongly attach that to love and like family experiences.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wrote that in nice to haves, but I'm like, I feel like that's a non-negotiable. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So those were my things.
I think that's a great list. I think it's a very aware list. I think that's the biggest thing is like if we could be aware of ourselves and aware of other people and be able to like mesh those two together. That's where we like go wrong. We're like, you're like, I want kids. And then we find somebody and we don't ask them for 2 years that if they want kids or not. They're like, I don't want kids. And you're like,
it's kind of my fault at that point.
Yeah. Like, how's this going to work out
messed
then?
Up. Yeah.
You know? And so I think it's one of those things where like some people don't communicate and don't like to have like deep conversations.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that blows my mind always because
no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's just not for you and me. Then, like, we can still be cool, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
but like, everybody's different, right? Everybody wants different things. I think if you can come to the table at the beginning. So this is going to get into like where I think stages are, like you like hanging out and then you're dating, and then you're exclusively dating, and then you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
In my brain, that's how it works. And it doesn't have to be like in that order or whatever, but that's just how it works in my brain. For me, like when I'm going to like actually like date someone, like be exclusive with them, I want to have a conversation about the things that if we haven't already, about the things that we feel like are going to be the most important in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because if they don't match at least 90%, like sometimes there's some things that I can be like, I can like compromise on that.
Yeah.
But there are some things that are, like you said, are non-negotiables. And if we don't match, then like that relationship is going to be either extremely hard work to be able to get on the same page or not going to work out at all. And I think that's where we go wrong. We try to like fit the circle in the square. And it does not work. And we're like, but it's got to at some point in time. And like, it doesn't. And we just keep like looking for the same thing and not actually being like, okay, this is what I need. Do you have this? And if not, it doesn't matter the sexual attraction. Yeah. It doesn't matter attraction in general. That's not going to work out in a relationship standpoint.
Yeah.
I think it's even worse to then bring kids into that situation. Because I always tell people are always like, oh, and when I have kids, like, kids are the most important. And, like, don't get me wrong, my kids are going to be extremely important to me. But the kids only stay for 18 years, and then they leave. And then you have to live the rest of your life with this other person. So if that person is not the most important person in your life, and you wouldn't do anything for that person, then, like, you should definitely not have kids with that person. Because you're going to raise these humans. Yeah. And then these humans are going to leave. Yeah. And you should then be, like, super excited because your favorite human gets to stay. Yeah. And that's, like, that is so where I don't understand people.
Oh, so you're saying that people are saying the partner doesn't matter as much?
I think, like, when kids come into the picture, then it's, like...
You're not developing.
Yeah. They're not keeping the development, right? Because they were in love or hopefully they were in love. And then now we've had added kids to it and you don't continue to like date and be in love with that person. That's when we have a lot of divorces once they've had kids. That's whenever like kids leave and people are like having adultery and things like that because we're not cultivating that relationship continuously. It's like, oh, I won you over. I courted you. Here we are. Like, okay, let's play nice for the rest of our lives. Instead of like, I'm going to continue to show up. I'm going to continue to show you love and affection, how you feel love and affection based upon your love languages. And I'm going to still be the same person I was from day one to day 1000. Yeah. Like, I think that's our problem is we're just like, oh, gotcha in the bag. Now I don't have to do any work.
Like, I think that one thing people don't necessarily understand, I think it comes with the self-awareness piece, right? Like, if you think you're operating on this level, but you're really here, and you might also think that you're attracted to people that are not good for you. I think this happens a lot. It's like, for me, it did of like attracting all these people that weren't emotionally available because on this level, I was like, no, I want to settle down. I want to be committed, all this stuff. But in reality, I was probably also emotionally unavailable. So I was like always finding myself in the same types of situations, but not knowing why. Because if you don't reckon with reality, then you can't change like there's no way to actually change because you're not operating at the true self. It's just like who you think you are. And so that's what I was thinking about, because it's like kind of scary to think about that a lot of people end up in marriages with people that remind them of their trauma, people who remind them of their parents, like same sorts of things. Like there's the whole imago therapy. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a therapy, a type of therapy where imago, I think, is Latin. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But it's like, it means like you're trying to find like this image or this mirror. And this person is like subconsciously you're trying to find this person that's going to help you overcome the challenges you had as a child and that you never worked through, but you're like subconscious is like attracting that because that's why they're going to end up producing the same sorts of feelings and things like that, because it's like your subconscious like, give me another chance. Like, let's do this again. It could work, but more often times than not, it's like, if you don't know why you're choosing somebody or if you're just going by a gut feeling, some people's guts are broken. Like I've talked to people, like this is why it pisses me off when people are like, I've asked a million people, like, you're married. Like, how did you know that they were the one? And they always look at me and they're like, you just know. And I'm like, you don't just know. Like, that's such bullshit, But then realizing, actually, that might be true, right? Like, some people just know because they grew up in a healthy family. They know what healthy love looks like, and they happen to meet somebody who was on the same page. That's why they're living happily ever after. But then for somebody who I feel like was calibrated incorrectly, I have all these things. And that's why this list was so important to me, because I have to check myself at every single one and say, is this out of vanity? Is this out of ego? Is this what my reactionary self wants in a partner? And I'm not even completely sure that all of those fit that criteria, because it's hard of just like, what do I actually want versus like, what do I need? They're just like completely different things.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the episode. And I'm just going to give you a few guidelines for how to create your own list. So for me, I just separated my list into two specific columns. One is non-negotiables and the other one is nice to haves. Really be honest with yourself, like we were in the episode, regardless of who's gonna read it. I mean, this list should be for you. So don't worry about anyone judging you or saying, oh, you shouldn't be looking for that. This is a time for you to reflect and figure out what it is that you actually want and be okay with that. Don't judge yourself for, wanting a specific thing. You may even feel guilty if you grew up in a religious background that you're saying, hey, I want sexual attraction and chemistry to be a big part of my relationship. You might have received judgment about that in the past, but this is for you. This is personal to you. You don't have to share it with anyone. So be honest about, on one hand, what you can actually handle, and second, what gets you excited, because a relationship shouldn't be about survival, about just getting the bare minimum, but it's about finding a partner that you can be excited about life with and somebody that you can continue to grow with. So definitely think about things that extend beyond just the present. If you say something like, oh, I just want somebody with like huge tits, like that's potentially not going to last forever. I mean, it could, but just think about things that allow them to thrive in every single situation, consistent things, right? So for example, if they are a critical thinker, that usually means that they can approach many different situations and approach it in a critical manner and not just accept things as they are. So if this is something important to you, you know that it expands beyond just one single trait, and you know that it's going to continue to help them grow. So it's kind of like characteristics that stack on top of each other. And you know that it's going to contribute to a future self, even if they're not that person now. And don't fall into the trap of dating somebody that you think you can fix, because that person that you imagine may not be the person that they become, and you might become discouraged when you don't see progress towards that future person that you're imagining for them. So just realize that, again, reiterating from the last episode, love is freedom. So how do you allow somebody to be themselves, but still recognize your own boundaries and figure out, is this something that I'm actually a good fit with? Is this something that I'm compatible with? And if not, then it's okay to move on and to set those boundaries. Like Angelica said, you don't have to date everyone. As a matter of fact, you only, if you believe in traditional marriage, end up with one person. So it's important to figure out what you want and to be very selective with those criteria and to be honest with yourself. Because if you think about even a job, most companies will vet the person that they're going to hire pretty seriously. They'll go through multiple interviews before they express any sort of desire to hire that person. So in the same way, we should be vetting our romantic partners. But instead, I'm seeing a lot of people that are just falling into relationships just super passively. You're not choosing this person because of who they are, but you're just passively falling into a relationship because you feel something for someone. And if you think about a job, which is really focused on how can this person contribute, it's a lot focused on what this person can bring and less about how you feel about this person. And this might not be true for every company, especially companies that hire for a culture fit. But even a culture fit lends to a specific outcome, because the more they fit in with a culture, the more efficiently the team's going to work. You shouldn't be falling into relationships with people. You shouldn't be looking at your partner and thinking to yourself, why am I with this person again? Like, it kind of just happened. Unless you get really, really lucky and this thing that just happened is turning out well for some reason. But also, it's kind of not fair to the other person that you're saying, hey, I'm just going to date this person because, I don't know, they kind of fell into my lap. I believe every person should be loved, should be valued, and hopefully be chosen. Because if they're just your default choice, then what happens when you actually meet the person that matches everything on your list? Then you might realize, oh, I don't actually like this person at all. So that's why it's so important to figure out what's on your list and to start looking for that person. And beyond even that, when you look at your list, make sure that you are working towards being everything on that list yourself. Because it is unfair to expect somebody else to fulfill those strengths. And there's research that shows that we commonly look for partners that we want to become. So they are our ideal self. But the dangerous piece of that is that you may look for a partner that quote unquote completes you. If they complete you, then that means you may not work on developing those skills yourself. You may start to rely on them. That is dangerous because now you are not self-sufficient. You're not pushing yourself to grow. You're kind of becoming comfortable in allowing the other person to fill a certain piece of yourself that you should be developing. So for example, if you're very introverted and you are often attracted to extroverted people, you may find that you're relying on them to make all of your friends, to expand your friend circle. And so what happens when they want to have their own friend group? If you break up, it'll be difficult to maintain those friendships with somebody that you've been kind of using as a crutch. So to sum up, firstly, figure out what your desired outcome is. If your desired outcome is to have a family and to have children and a stable lifestyle and to be happy, then figure out what kind of person you would need to be with in order to make that happen. So figure out what your outcome is and then be honest with the qualities that you need in someone in order to reach that outcome, and separate that into non-negotiables and nice to haves, because you don't have to have everything and there are certain things that you can negotiate on, but figure out what your deal breakers are. Make sure that you keep those boundaries and that you discuss that with anyone you consider dating. Don't, again, passively fall into relationships because they are just a warm body that's around, that's giving you attention, but instead know why you're dating someone, choose that person, discuss it with that person, and make sure that your outcomes are aligned. Lastly, continue working towards being the person that you're seeking on your list, because it's so important to be a whole person. Don't find somebody to complete you. That's ridiculous. Become self-sufficient, become a whole person. It means that you don't use your future partner as a crutch and that you continue to push yourself in areas that make you uncomfortable. So if it's going out and networking and meeting new people, go out and do that, pursue that, and get better at it instead of waiting for somebody to come along who's going to make that easier for you. And the last thing I will add is to continue iterating. This list is not meant to be static. Continue thinking about it for a week or several weeks or a month and just continue adding things, removing things, and really ask yourself questions related to each item. Like I mentioned in the episode, for each one, think about, do I actually need this? Or is this just something I admire in somebody that I would be using as a crutch? So definitely be honest with yourself. Call yourself out. You're gonna be able to make a list that's very self-aware and will actually produce the outcomes that you're looking for. You have to start with knowing what that outcome is. Otherwise, you're living kind of an aimless, chaotic life. Because at the end of the day, what you aim for is what you focus on. And what you focus on is what you end up seeing. And when you see more of it in your life, that grows. So the idea that what you focus on grows applies to a lot of different aspects of your life. And so if you don't have an aim, you're kind of living in a very inefficient way. In some ways, you're throwing darts at a board and hoping that something sticks. But that doesn't always lead to the best outcomes. So if you want to be happy, you want to have a peaceful and stable life, or maybe you want to have a spontaneous life. You want to have a life where you and your partner start a business or take risks. But the thing about that too is that you need a solid foundation. You need a stable foundation in order to be spontaneous. Spontaneity, not anchored with a foundation, is just chaos, and chaos doesn't produce results. So definitely take the time, figure out, first of all, what outcome you're looking for. And then off of that, figure out what you need in a partner. I hope that was useful for you guys. Again, this is Joyce. This is Overthinker the podcast. And I